So basically, always have this. This is just non-negotiable since first semester. I'm sure you guys know that already. And here's like a couple of things that they tell you of the project itself. So what we're doing is we're basically determining how much like the syntax that is either lost or collected from each liquor store. So the finance minister would like to know how much money the government can get back from the sale of alcohol by collection of so-called syntax. Oh, Mr. Cottrell seems to have joined us.
It's fine. Continue, Mr. Singh. I'm just responding.
Oh. Yeah, so one of the key things to note in this little paragraph here is that they want one of the fields to be taken in as a decimal and converted into something like this, right? I know a lot of people did it in the millions, and we'll see why that is now. So in your design, you need basic stuff. I'm not going to do the design today. I know if you have a specific question to deal with design. So look at the questions. We'll be done in the tutorial. Other folks in the code. And then we've got, so your interface, one of the issues that we've noticed from the way you guys are building the interface is that it doesn't seem very logical or like easy to use. So as a software engineer, one of the things that you have to consider is that most of the time the people who are going to be using your product and your software that you build are not the smartest of people. Always assume that your user is an idiot. In a sense, I mean that you should give them the least amount of control over your software as possible, over the flow of your software as possible. With the way so by the flow of your software, I mean the way that your code executes. So you should have buttons that are split up in logical sequence that allows you to build up the things correctly. So maybe have one button for initialize, and so you need to initialize everything. So that's resize your arrays and basically resize the grid, as well as take in all of the information at once. So I have those for loops that pull in all of the information, but split them up into the questions in your code. So do it in separate for loops where you comment that this is explicitly question 1 and this is explicitly question 2, or 2 and 3, or whatever the case might be. But make sure that you have your buttons doing things logically as possible. Remember, most people who use software don't know what initialize the arrays mean, right? So if you just have a button called capture information, most people know what that means, and that's a good button name because they'll know, oh, they have to capture information before everything works. So that's basically how you just name your stuff and design your interface. Always have option statements, and then effective subroutines and functions. That just means that, like I said earlier, split up your stuff into the questions that needs to be done, but also remember every single function or subroutine should only do one thing. Each thing should have its own specific purpose, and you should then be able to use that specific. You should be able to use that function for only one thing, and it should take in all of the values it needs as parameters. Take all of those values, deal with what they're doing, and do some calculation, do some processing, or change some string or something that happens, and return an answer, or just make permanent changes to that copy of the parameter, if I can put it that way. You guys know what that means because last semester you had to do a subroutine that returns an answer, and the way to do that was by passing by ref, if you guys remember, right? This is basically how we look at how to design our data structure, right? So we know that there has to be two data structures. There has to be one that deals with municipality stuff, and there has to be one that deals with the liquor store stuff. These three here that are numbered differently, right? So the rest belongs to, we'll see how to slot it in when we're coding it. Any questions about what you should understand from the paragraph, or how to actually do the practical, or even creation of the record structures? Do you guys have any questions with regards to that? No. Okay, cool. That's fine. Going back, so we can just quickly go through this. The solution was be able to handle any number of municipalities, any number of liquor stores per thing, and any number of days. This basically means this is telling you how many dynamic arrays to have, right? So in essence, you should have one dynamic array of municipalities that holds a dynamic array of liquor stores, which holds a dynamic array of days. Right, the way this is structured, the way your record structures have been hinted at the beginning tells you that which one should be in which, but you know that there needs to be at least 3 dynamic arrays somewhere in your program, right? Because that's what this says. The numbers are to be specified by the user. Like I said, just another hint at dynamic arrays. For the purpose of this assessment, you can assume that each municipality has the same number of liquor stores, while each liquor store has been monitored for the same number of days. That's just to make everything simpler for both you and me as a marker. In real life, this is probably not going to be the case, but you don't have to worry about that for now. When you're a big and strong software programmer, engineer, man or woman, or whatever, you will be able to deal with different numbers of days per liquor store and different numbers of liquor stores per municipality. So do you see in question 2, it says input the number of things, set up the grid, set up the dynamic arrays, label the UJ grid controls, right? And it gives you a hint here. Municipalities need to be rows. So in case you've forgotten, rows are the ones that go sideways across the screen. So from left to right, columns are the ones that go down. The easiest way to remember this is a column of cement is another name for a pillar. Okay, so if you think about that, a pillar is something that holds stuff up, so it goes from the ground to whatever that is. That's how you know what the difference between a column and a row is. The input of data for each province, right? So here's a little bit of information, a little bit of confusion coming in here, right? So we say each province, right? What this means is, do we now need to have a different record structure for province? Or do we need to just have the whole program deal with one province? The way we were supposed to read it was that the whole program deals with one province. While a lot of people might have made the mistake of trying to make a province data structure or province record structure, that wasn't exactly the correct way. But if your solution still solves the problem and you have the correct, or you have the right amount of dynamic arrays and stuff like that, we were more than happy to give you the marks. Okay, so for each liquor store, calculate, store, and display the syntax calculated, right? Now here's a key word that's in this question that means a lot, right? Display. I think it was a typing error. I used municipality. Oh, that's more than fine. If you used municipality and then we just assumed that your software was dealing with a single province at a time. So that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Going back to this, we have syntax must be displayed. Now you have the first thing that you know you have to display, right? So we know that you have to display municipalities as rows, and you have to display the syntax, right? So now we'll have to decide whether the syntax fits under municipalities or under liquor stores or under both, right? But here in the one that we know needs to be displayed is in each municipality. So we know that there must be a syntax in a municipality, right? So we'll call that, let's say, total syntax for the municipality. And it's basically just going to be 20% of the total profit recorded over all days, which is just 20% of the total of the days array, which most of you guys got that, so that was pretty normal. Does the naming convention for record structures matter? Right now, not in particularly, but I do think it's good for you to get into a rhythm or like a habit of naming things in a very descriptive matter. So a lot of markers will take off marks if you name things badly, and I'm one of those. The reason being, as a software engineer, you are not responsible for just making the software. You need to make the software maintainable, it needs to be readable, it needs to be usable, and it needs to be upgradable. And all of those things need to happen by people who are not always you. So, for example, you might build the initial version of this program and send it on, and somebody else takes it and tries to upgrade it to capture for all of the provinces at once, or different countries, or different versions of liquor stores, etc., or different kinds of alcohols, right? So when they add on code, they need to be able to understand your coding. They need to be able to know what's happening in your coding. And one day when you make a program that's like close to 25,000 lines long, I don't want to have to scroll through 25,000 lines to figure out what AM means for when you say alcohol municipality, right? That makes my job harder as the person who gets your code, who inherits your code or your problems, right? And let's say, for example, there's a bug in your code. Somebody needs to be able to review your code. So later on in life, you'll understand software engineers regularly have their software reviewed. That means other people look at your code, read your code, and try and determine whether you coded it well enough to be put out by the company. Those reviews need to be understandable. So the easier it is for them to review it, the quicker your software comes out, and the more likely it is that you'll meet your deadlines. So that's why I take off marks for that, because it's just a better practice, and at UJ we like you to be good software engineers, not people who you will hate one day in life because they're bad software engineers. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, cool. You said noted. For each municipality, calculate, store, and display the total syntax collected. Right? Now, doesn't this look like a little bit of a double? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to assume that when it says the total of all profit to days recorded, this one is actually referring to each liquor store, because remember we said that we're going to put all of the days dynamic array inside liquor stores, calculate the syntax, and then I'm going to say for each municipality it's going to be the total syntax collected. So that's how I'm going to consider that, and that's probably the easiest way to consider it. For each municipality, calculate and store the index of the liquor store with the lowest syntax collected. Right, so this is just a basic minimum calculation. You've done these countless times in Infos 1A, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue, but we'll go through that, but very quickly. Use this index to display the name of the liquor store for each municipality that had the lowest syntax. Okay, cool. Calculate the index. Okay, cool. Define a function called subtract d, right? Which accepts two parameters, a double parameter called first and a double parameter called second. The function must calculate first minus second. Now, I did have somebody in my group who decided to multiply this by 1,000,000 or 1,000 or whatever the case might be, right? Now, the reason some people might lose marks for that is because this explicitly says that the function must only subtract the first and the second. So if you get something like this where it's explicit in your instructions that you have to make a single function and it tells you exactly what that function must do and return, and you do something else, that's you're going to lose marks for that because you didn't follow instructions. Remember, one of the major things as a software engineer is being able to follow instructions and do what your client wants you to do, ensuring client satisfaction. So just remember that. For each municipality, calculate, store, and display the municipality's debt status. Now, most of you guys could have used if statements or case statements for this, right? So that's not such a big deal. It's calculated by subtracting the total syntax from the revenue lost, right? Revenue. So we know that there has to be some revenue lost that's in the thing that we need to subtract and to have total syntax subtracted from. Remember that the record structure currently stores revenue lost field is in millions. So 7.2 is then turned into 7.2. Okay, this is 7,200,000, right? So that's just like something to consider. And going down, I think that's it, right? So let's see. Hopefully Mr. Cottrell has managed to sort out the record thing. Oh, it is. It's recording in progress. Okay, cool. I didn't realize that. So I could have started with the coding early on. Displaying the name is kind of confusing in the code. Oh, okay. So I understand what you mean by that. Remember, if you have an index, it's basically just indexing back into the array to get the name. But I'll show you how to do that. All right. So let's go to code. Let's try and share some code here quickly. Share application. All right, please raise your hand when you can to tell me if you can see what I've got on screen and you can read it. All right, so you guys can read it. All right, cool. All right, let's go in. So basically what I've done is I just created a brand new web app. I've done the option statements and I've just done a little bit of commenting. Oh, a key note that I have to emphasize is that you guys must comment, right? Tell us what your code is doing. Don't have chunks of code where you're not describing what the code is doing, all right? If you do that, you're going to have a serious problem because your marker is going to get lost and you might lose marks for it if the marker doesn't have the time to read through your code and understand it. Now, a lot of you will be like, oh, well, isn't it the marker's job to now go through my code and understand? Remember, the marker has a lot of students to do, and it's your duty as a software engineer to make their job as easy as possible as a reviewer of your code. The quicker they can review your code, the quicker it can be published in real life. You have a question, Mr. or Mrs.?
Yes, I do have a question. So
Yes.
regarding what you just said, I just want to make sure that by you saying we need to comment on our code, do you mean we need to like specify the question that you're answering or actually describe what the code is doing? I'm asking because there was a time where I commented on all the lines in my code and I was told that I shouldn't do that because it's too much commenting and it just makes everything look a bit weird.
All right, so that's a good question, and I understand why your marker might have been confused by too many comments. Keep the comments to basically just giving a high-level description of what's happening in that section of code. So as I scroll through your code, I should be able to use the comments as like an indexing thing. Like imagine headings in a chapter, or not headings, subheadings, where basically I know that this section of code is basically going to be where I define my variables. This section of code is going to be where I define the record structures or other data structures that I'm going to be building. This section of code is where I'm going to be initializing and resizing my array and grid. And most of the time, the questions are basically the high-level description of what you need to do, because I mean, that's how you're going to be marked, right? So if you do just describe the questions that's happening, that should be fine. But if you do something slightly confusing, for example, let's say you do something that's not quite easy to understand and does have a lot of calculations or something like that, you can just describe that calculation. Then you're just saying, I'm multiplying this by this and dividing it by this for X and Y to get X and Y, right? So it's basically just you making sure that everything is easy to understand, especially if you were in a rush when you code something and you used weird names. So there's something called self-documentation, right? Which is where your code describes itself. That's what you should aim for. You should aim for having your code be so readable that you don't need to comment on every line. Okay, it should have the names of variables and the names of data structures should be really, really easy to understand. And they should then imply what the code means. So you should know that a for loop from X to the number of days tells me that, oh, I'm looping through every single day in this list, right? I shouldn't have to comment there that I'm looping through every day in the list because it's seen in the for loop. Remember that every reviewer has basic knowledge of code and they have an understanding of the way code works. You're just describing things that they might not understand or that is specific to this situation in your comments. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, sir. Everything is okay now. Thank you.
No problem. All right, back to this. Let's do our record structures. We said there was going to be one for a municipality and one for a liquor store, right? So in the municipality, we want the name, lost revenue, stores, total syntax, worst index, dead status, right? Most of you guys got this right. You've been working with record structures for a long time. So it's basically just going to copy and paste this off of for practical where it was easy to, where it was done correctly. If you have any questions about it, you're welcome to ask me, or if you don't understand anything, please feel free to just raise your hand and stop me, or even just put your mic on it. Nobody else is talking at that time. You see that this is in red. That's because it's just the one record structure is missing. Right. So we'll just drop that here. Right. So like here, if you want to go a little bit more in depth, you can say one record structure for municipalities, right? Okay, you can just have one for liquor, and you can just say one here is for liquor stores. But because of the naming, this kind of describes that. You understand when I said self-documenting code. So this is easy to understand. I can see that the stores is there. It's very easy to read. It's not difficult code to understand. And that's something that's really important as a software. Now, remember we said we need to have at least one municipality array which contains some stores. And inside those stores, we need to have profit per day, right? As dynamic arrays, please. Is there a question? Displaying the name, aren't we supposed to start with the liquor store record structure? The sequence of record structures does not matter. By now, most of you guys should either be getting ready to do C++ or are doing C++, right? So that's a very good question. Visual Basic is unique in the fact that the order in which you declare variables or structures doesn't matter. For example, if I put liquor store first, this red line just wouldn't have been there when I placed municipality down. But in some coding languages, it does matter the order in which you declare things. For example, in C++, I think it is, if you declare a function below where you use it, it will not know what to do, right? So you need to just be careful in those languages. In Visual Basic, it's pretty easy to just group everything together like this, where you start with the main one and then put the sub one underneath, because that's how it works in my mind, where I logically think about it. And as long as you know that you're going to build a liquor store record structure, that red line at the beginning there is not really a big deal. So the order doesn't really matter. So it just makes more sense like this, right? Because I know that this is the big one, this is the main one. So variables, right? So let's make a dynamic array. One second, I'm just gonna check something. I'm doing this right. Yes, I am. Then we know that there's 3 dynamic arrays, so we need to have 3 integers, right? So let me use Camcase for this. Okay, I can't do multiples like that. My bad. All right, so now I've just got the whole. Right, now I'm equipped to take on question 1. I mean question 2, which is basically a resizing of everything. Just gonna plop a grid down. Slide toolbox. And there's a grid. And we'll do some buttons at the same time. Let's put 3 down. If I need more, I'll pull more in later. Just rename this quickly. um, all right, now we have buttons. Let's go do some double clicking. All right. One second. Is it now this, as you saw, I double clicked them in order, but they added in different areas, right? So this is definitely why you need to tell us which question goes away. Just so it's easy for us to find, so we can go Control F and just go question 2 or whatever the case might be, right? Depending on what naming convention you use. If you use like Q2 or whatever the case might be, that's I'm more than happy with that. Just make sure you're consistent and you do it throughout every practical, and you do it throughout the entire practical, each one that you do. Right, so let's start off resizing. So we know that they're inside each other from the way that we define them, right? So one of the things that we'll need to ask first is how many municipalities, how many liquor stores, and how many days, right? So we're just gonna have to do that, and then we're gonna have to read them and do a for loop, and then read them the stores, and then do a for loop, and then read them each profit per day thing. So as you can see, there is 2 for loops inside your resizing of arrays, right? As you can imagine, or as you should be thinking about it. Let's get that going. So first thing we're gonna do is days equal to box. Right? In here we'll have. Wait, am I doing this the C# way or am I doing it the correct way? Let's just make sure. Oh yeah, no, it's pretty fair. Maybe it should just be 2. In here we'll have how many days are we oh it's just how many stores municipality. Let's say how many right? Make sure these are proper sentences. Remember, these are going to a user. As a user who doesn't have a manual on how to use the software, when you ask for input, you should ask for the input in as nicely as possible or as clearly as possible. Let's try this section quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do is read them. Municipalities, num municipality. Wait, let's just do this in a more easy manner. We said we're gonna have 2, so I'm just gonna make X and Y at one time. I'm gonna say X Got a question. Let's figure it out. Are you still going to add captions for your prompts, or is there a specific reason? I'm just trying to save time because we're already 41 minutes in, and I only have like around another 40 minutes to finish this practical. I'll come back and finish up the captions at a later stage if I have time. Yeah. If you guys spot any issues with my for loops, please let me know. I might be leaving an issue in for you guys to spot. It just depends. If you guys are awake enough on an early Saturday morning to spot. Nobody's spotted it yet. Are we supposed to index from 0 to the for loop? Well, it just depends on how you set up your for loops, right? Usually we go from 1, so that's a good catch. But there is another more obvious thing that might be wrong. See this number of days? Why have I said that stores is going to number of stores, but then I'm looping through number of days, right? That's clearly wrong. So this needs to change to stores. Because the array size, and remember, you're working in 3 different sized arrays, right? So you need to make sure that the stuff matches. You can't loop through more or less than there is here. So if you made this array as big as num stores, which is let's say 7, you can only loop to 7. If you loop to like let's say 20, which is num days, you're going to get an out of bounds error because you don't have that many spaces in the array. Right? So does that make sense? And then we've got yes. Good. Then we've got to let's do the grid. So size and label. Now remember, we said that the number of rows needs to match municipalities, right? So the first thing we need to remember is that there's always a heading row for each municipality. And what we're displaying in each municipality is the total syntax, as well as the syntax per each store, right? So what we need to do is we're going to have the first one, total syntax per store, and the debt status, right? So there's going to be 3 columns of things to display from inside, excluding the heading column, right? And so that's 4 columns in total, and there's going to be 4, and there's going to be the number of rows is equal to the number of municipalities plus 1 for the heading. Does that make sense? You guys understand how I came to that conclusion? Yes. Okay, cool. So let's do that quickly. So let's go rename our UJ grid. I didn't do that. Right. We're in this button. So let's get there. Grid rows. Well, let's do our place text subroutine quickly before we go further in this. Line 56 is incomplete. All right, let's go see what we've done wrong in line 56. Line 56, resize and label grid. What did I do wrong? Oh, 58. Display grid.calls is equal to 4. Please explain what you mean by that. Let's see what you mean.
The dimensions. So can I speak, sir?
Oh, so you say num liquor stores plus 4.
Plus,
That's very smart. That is a very good catch.
no. Yes,
Yeah. Go on.
thank you. That's what I wanted to say, sir. Like
Yeah.
the size of my array needed to be num liquor store plus 4, not only 4.
Okay, that's a very good catch. So well done for catching that one. But actually, no problem. But actually, it's also the number of days. Or are we not displaying number of days? Does it say we need to display number of days?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. So let's just do liquor stores. Nicely done. Nicely done. And let's just make our place text thing quickly. Hopefully you guys all remember this friend of ours, the display text or place function. You guys all understand what I did there? Okay, cool. Will it work? Yes, you have a question?
Okay, sir. So for me, sir, it don't work necessarily
Okay.
because yes, sir, it don't work. For me, it don't work
Can you explain why?
because you are not looping in the like the your variables for looping in the row, column, and text. They are not in a right or they are not in a right way. It has to be like your variable for a row, column, and then you sistering your text, meaning that it has to loop through all the municipalities.
So it has to loop through all of the municipalities.
So
But
sorry, sir.
aren't I doing that? Aren't I looping through the municipalities with this, with the 4i, 2 municipalities?
Oh, you are, sir. But now
Yeah.
displaying it, it's going to be an issue because you only said I.
Yes, but doesn't the
Yes.
name belong to each municipality? So if you look here, it's got a name only in the municipality. It's not in the liquor store.
Okay, so because what I am used to doing, sir, is
Mm-hmm.
making the variable like the naming this display. I understand that you want to when you place the text and then it changes the name automatically. But the way I understand it is I only use the variables and then in the place text in the input, it's only then that I make place text and it changes from there from the
That's
input
okay. Yes,
button.
yes. So right now we haven't put anything in here, right? That's what you're saying. There's nothing in here.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's perfect. That's the exact problem. So before that, we'll need to put some input, right?
Yes.
So that's where we'll have to capture all of the information. Capture info for all. Yeah, there we go. So once we've captured information, then we can introduce the names automatically, right? That's kind of what you're
Yes.
saying. Here we go.
Let me
Yes,
see. In the normally that is done in the input button.
in the input button.
Yes,
Well,
sir. Like
if, if you look
oh
at what I've named,
okay.
yeah, it is in the capture button.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, but I understand what you mean, and I will split this up into subroutines or functions now.
Okay,
So I'll
sir.
split it up
So
now.
this
I just wanted to establish a logical flow quickly.
okay, sir. So this is your way of coding, your style, sorry, of coding.
Yes, basically. I
Okay,
like
sir.
to do things. I like to set up the flow first and then split it up afterwards. Once I'm sure it
Okay,
works.
thank
So once,
thank you, sir. I'll try it out also and see if it works also for me to save time because the way I code it normally wastes time because I'm still a beginner. But I will incorporate your style as time goes. Thank you, sir.
no problem. I hope it helps.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. So the gentleman that just spoke to us brought up a lot of good points, and one of the main things I wanted you guys to realize was that there was nothing in municipality name. We never asked anybody for the names of the municipalities, and we were just trying to place text with it, right? So what was going to happen was you're going to find a null reference or error or another error where you're trying to reference something that isn't there, right? So basically, to stop that, we'll do input first. Now, the reason why I like trying to code everything like this by skipping a line initially is so that I know where my mistakes are while I'm thinking. So originally, you're supposed to do a section like the resize, and you're supposed to test and then do this and then test and then and then realize, oh, the input is what's missing. Then you will create the input section where you're looping through the things and filling it with information. And then you do this, right? So then you'll know where the error lies as you build up your program. And once you've built up the program so enough to a point where it can be split up, then you split it up into subroutines. But I'll show you how to split up now. Let me just do the input section. So one of the cheat codes for this is for everything that you read you can basically do an input, right? So you shouldn't do this technically. Kind of cheating. Copy pasting is not good, but I'm running out of time. Slowly but surely. X1, Y1. Right. So here I have to, for each municipality, I'm going to have to ask the name and everything else that needs to be asked. So we will just clear out the stuff from the old thing. 1 second. A lot of the things I'm doing now is in a bit of a rush, so it might not be 100% properly done. It's up to you to do it more properly. I'm trying to save time and show you the correct way to do things. Trying to limit the mistakes that you make in the next practical, because you need to understand this for the next practical, if that makes sense. Okay, so these two here, total syntax and worst index, we're calculating, right? So all we have to ask for is the name and how much revenue was lost for each municipality. Right? So that makes sense. Let's just copy off our input box thing here, because we like copying and pasting, which we shouldn't do, just so you know, it's specifically stated. So when the lecturers read this, watch the video, they know that I said it's not allowed. Okay, let's some more copying and pasting. Right. Again, try and make sure that these sentences make sense, right? The more sense they make, the easier it will be for your user to understand and properly answer them, right? Properly give the correct information. Now we do these stores. So where we're calculating syntax. So the next thing we have to ask is profit per day. As you can see, that's all the options there are. So we just have to do the profit per day, which relies on the number of days. So this is going to be a third for loop that we have to add, right? So we don't have to do anything else here for now. This little for loop, let's just do this box. Now, in here, what we can do that's cool is we can say in in the, let's say, Ekurhuleni. Do that again. Oh, we don't have municipality. Remember to run this and see that your spacing works, right? Municipality. What is the name of store Y1? And that should give us a good sentence. Right now, what's the issue here? Oh, we forgot a plus. Right, so that just tells the person which municipality they're dealing with by name, right? So that they don't have to remember all of that information, particularly if they're using a lot of municipalities, right? You don't want them to be remembering names and which name fits with which number. You tell them the name because you've already asked for it, right? So that's one of the cool things to do. There's lots of ways to structure your input. You don't have to structure it with a for loop inside a for loop. You can do a for loop first, get everything municipalities, then do another for loop and get everything for each municipality, right? And then so that'll still be another double for loop, but it'll be after this initial one where you capture everything for the municipalities. That's if you feel like making it a bit easier for your user in some way, or if you feel like changing it up. Most people will be expecting this though, most of your markers, so just be careful of that. And they might end up doing something silly if you don't follow the typical convention. So one of the next things we need is another variable here. Coming now, let me just finish this line before I don't like the red lines. Properly indented. I'm coming. So what is you using for using plus instead of question mark? What do you mean? Instead of ampersand, do you mean? So instead of using the and. Yeah, well, the and is the correct one. So and means concatenate, right? But plus works just as fine. So it doesn't really matter much. I just feel like plus makes more sense here for me. Plus, finding the ampersand is sometimes hard on my keyboard. So when I'm in a rush, I just don't look at that. Ampersand is the more correct version, I think. But I don't really think it matters. I don't think you'll be marked down for using plus. All right, now we have to go municipalities 1 dot stores y1 dot days I1 equals 2, and profit per day, so we're going to copy a C double, and that'll work nicely. Right. What is the profit for a Alright, I guess attending Saturday classes is cool. One gets to learn new ways of programming outside class. Every software engineer has their own way of programming. As you get better at programming, you'll learn your own way of programming also, that you'll be able to apply and that you'll find easier. As long as it's correct, it's well documented, and it's easy to understand, nobody's going to bother you about it. Let's structure this question a little bit better quickly, shall we? In the municipality for awesome. All right. Just 1 second. I think I need to just drink a little bit of water. I do apologize for that. I'm sorry. So for store into a municipality. Yes, now we've got in the Ekurhuleni municipality, 4 store liquor boys. That we can just say, what is the profit for a, and then we've got the day, right? So that's a very descriptive sentence. It makes it easy for your user. It takes a long time. It's difficult to build, but it's worth it, right? So now we've got the input. So now our labeling should work, right? It should work. So let's just make sure I'm teaching you guys the right thing quickly. Yep. And then the name, what is this? Profits. Yeah. And then, all right, cool. And then the next thing we need to do. So now we've done everything that fits into our capture button, right? We resized we got the numbers for the size, the array size. We resized the array, we took in some input, and we labeled the grid, right? If you want to make your coding easy, I'll show you how to split it up now. I'm not going to test because I know this is correct, and it's just easier for me to test at the end and give you a demonstration like closer to the end of how this works. But oh yes, another important thing, when you guys are testing something with 3 arrays or 4 arrays or whatever, always increase the size of your arrays as you move through them. So let's say we say municipalities is 2, stores is 3, and days is 4, right? That way we'll see if we've ever made a mistake with the loop variable. So if we've ever made a mistake with one of those, right? Because you cannot loop to something where it's not there, right? So if profit per day was not resized number of days, we would have a serious problem here and it would throw an error. So, but if it was resized to stores by mistake or whatever, which is a very, very common mistake. So let's say profit per day ended up being resized to number of stores here in our resize area, right? And we made a mistake there, and we don't know because nobody tests resize. You can't really see an error in resizing, right? But here, when you're inputting, you can see that there's a problem if you test it properly. And the proper way to test it is to increase the size each time, or just test with different numbers for each array size. Never go 222 or 333 because you'll never spot an error here. And if you make an error here, it caps the correctness from here down. So in your semester test, you're going to lose correctness marks from input all the way to the bottom, and that's not what you want, right? You want to have your mistakes, if any, right at the end so that it limits your marks as little as possible. All right. I hope that's a useful tip for you guys. I know for me, it was always just try never to lose any marks. So that's something I really tried to do my best to do in first year. All right, let's go to the next button. Oh wait, I was showing you how to split up things, right? So you can do is you can say private sub size grid, right? And the reason we don't need parameters for this is because we've made num days, num municipalities, num liquor stores, all of those global variables. So every single subroutine knows those things by now, right? So what you can do is you can use resizing grid and labeling. Right, and then all you have to do is copy paste. You just call it. Say resize grid like that, and then we know to double click there, right click and say show definition, go to definition, and then it takes us right there, so we know where to go. Right, makes it a bit easier for us as markers. This is if this section here becomes a bit too complicated, right? Also, it makes it easy to debug. So for example, if you figure that the problem is probably in resizing, you can put a little dot here and then you can deal with it as you wish, right? Because you can step through it. You can put a breakpoint down and you can step through it. So I'm just gonna do my next one also, which is structure of your code is unique per person, so you don't have to copy my way of doing code. You can find what works for you and makes it easier for you to code as quickly as possible and as well as possible. Right? So we can just cut all of this stuff here, here, or capture. right? That does that. And in my opinion, you can. This is one thing: getting the values and resizing. That's one job, right? So this two here are two separate jobs, in my opinion, where you label and resize, and then get input. So that's why I split those up. Always remember to save and test. Just a reminder: make sure you save and test. If you find an issue, then you'll be able to deal with it as quickly as possible. All right, the next button that we have to deal with. What I'm actually going to do is, I'm tired of the structure, so I'm just going to Control X, drop it down here, and I'm going to say save, and I'm going to go back here, and everything's still fine. That's good. Sometimes when you cut these subroutines out, it messes with the form, so just be careful, all right? Make sure you don't make a mistake with that. Okay, button calculate, right? So what we were doing in calculate, I remember it was question, let's just check the question paper again. Calculating syntax. So we had to calculate syntax for question 4, question 5. So question 3 was input all of the necessary data. Let's just label those as questions also. Yes, you have a question.
Okay, so for your remaining information in labeling your grid, I
Yes.
see that you didn't add the labeling of the syntax collected, the index of the worst performing cluster, and the depth status.
Oh yes, I didn't add the headings and stuff. Correct. I forgot about that. Good catch. Good catch. Good catch. I'll do that now. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Let's go. No problem. All right, let's go and label the things properly. So I've labeled the one side. Now we have to label the columns. Columns. Is it the columns? Yes, it is the columns. So what we'll do is we will say, make another INM, right? 4 n is equal to 1, 2, non-liquid stores, right? Now let's consider what we're doing here. We're placing text in the topmost row, right? We're placing stuff in the topmost row to say that firstly it's going to be store 1 syntax, store 2 syntax, store 3 syntax, plus total syntax, plus the status, right? Plus the status of the municipality. So we're going to have the municipality syntax and then the status at the end. But what I want to do is I also want to show the lost revenue. The reason I want to do this is because when I'm marking your project, right, I don't have to remember what I put down as lost revenue. It's too much of work and I've done it too many times. And for users also, it's just easier. So that'll give us 3 things plus the heading, right? So here, what we're going to do is we're going to say 2, because 0 is going to be basically just the 0th column with the names of the municipalities. The first one, which we'll do now, is text. We can put municipalities lost revenue. We'll just say lost revenue. Right. X1, comma Y0, right? So, and then in here we'll do liquor store, we'll say syntax per liquor store 1, whatever the case might be. Let's just do that nicely. Remember to add your spaces. And here, instead of x1, we'll put n for x and 0 still because it's a heading. That'll give us all the way till the end of liquor stores. And then at the end of that, what we can do is we can place text again, and we can do the basically the last few things which I wanted to do was total syntax or per municipality, but I'll just call it total syntax. That's going to be at num stores 1 right at 0 store, and I wanted one more plus 2, and this is going to be the get status, right? Okay, so that's everything labeled. Does anybody see any errors in this? If you do, please let me know. I'm more than happy to fix it. All right, so now we go back to the calculation thing. Where's that? One of these at the bottom here. You call it that one. All right, so calculate syntax. And we'll call this question 4 if I remember. Right, so the first one we had to do was calculate syntax for each liquor store. Right, so obviously we need our for loop, so let's do our variables from x is integer for x 1, 2. Y now inside the municipalities, then we need to go into the stores for y 1 num stores next y. Then we need to start off by dimming a total. Double let's say total equals naught. Right. Then we need to go into each day and we're going to total the days. So we're going to go 4z equals 1, 2, 9 days. It's important you guys understand loops. So if you're really having problems with the loops, please let me know so that I can help you guys with the loops and sort that out. I'm gonna go a bit over time today. So if you need to do something, you're welcome to watch the video later on. It is being recorded, so it will be uploaded. But if not, it'll be I'll really appreciate it if you guys stay with me just to keep answering questions and spotting my mistakes. So just that there, I need to finish this practical. 4z the number of days. In here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say total plus equals parity. Okay. Now we've got the total. Now we need to, so after this for loop runs, we'll have the total for that specific store. So we'll just store it in there. So I'm just gonna go like this and say dot x equals total. Right. It is now being calculated. Now we need to display it, right? But let's get to displaying later. First, let's calculate everything. So we've calculated the total profit or the total syntax per liquor store. Now what you can do is just tell that store. We'll do here. We'll say I need to tell syntax units. If I'm spelling this wrong, I am sorry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste again because I'm a terrible coder and you should never do this. I don't think we need Z. That's not important right now. Let's cut him out. Let's put you outside here. And you outside here. Label you one. Right, total one. All right. The reason I did this, while you could have used these, because at the beginning of each for loop we set it to 1 again, it's because I like to split up code, right? So I make my own for each section of code, each variables, and I put it into a separate subroutine. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's just easier for me, in my personal opinion. Now here, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did earlier and say total equals municipalities or y1 syntax, right? Getting the total, and here we'll just go like that. Let's see if it's the right thing. Total syntax, right? Now we've calculated the total syntax for both the municipalities and the stores, and that took us less than 5 minutes. It took us 4 minutes in exact like time. Now to display. Now we'll get to displaying, right? Just so we can see that we've done it correctly. What we're gonna do is actually I'm just going to for question 4, your total must be multiplied by 0.2. Oh yes, I need to calculate the 20%. Great catch. Sorry, I wasn't reading the question paper at that time. Total, not this one here. The store one, yeah. So it's per store multiplied 0.2, right? This is just because the question paper says so, basically. So, and the reason I don't do it for each municipality is because it's already done here, and that's just the total of the array. Fair enough. Let's see, how am I going to display this? What have we got here? So we know that the liquor store places goes from number 2 to num stores, right? So let's do that again. Oh, Control Z. All right. And right. And what we're doing here is we're not placing liquor store. What we're going to place is syntax. So C string. Oh, geez, this has to be in multiple loops. All right. No, this has to be in one more, actually. Isn't format since it's a double? Yes, I will do. Oh, yes, I can't just C string it. Good job. Good spot in that one. I'll deal with the formatting now. I just need to set up the outside for loop here. C string format here. What am I putting here again? I'm putting two dot stores and dot syntax and 0.0 and and here what we'll do is, since we're smart about this, we'll go x2, right? Because that makes sense. And that's done for the one thing for each municipality, right? I forgot that this is outside the subroutine here. That was a problem. Line. Okay, now this one is just going to be in column 1, and it's going to be in row. Is this row? Let's just make sure. I think it is. We'll swap it around now if it's not, and going to be in row M. Make sure. There's our place text right at the top. Place text. Yeah, the bottom, the Y is going to be row. Nice. Yeah, row M. Cool. All right, so now we've displayed the syntax. Now the final thing that we need to do is basically the status, right? So I'm not going to split this one up, but you guys know how to split it up now. All you have to do is make a subroutine, cut the stuff out under, put it into the subroutine, and call your subroutine. Right? Remember to test before you. Remember to test as you do each section, right? Every time I skip a line, you test, right? So just remember that. Then the last thing is on a button, the last button, which is here. So for this, we're basically just going to, oh yes, the other thing I was supposed to do is get the lowest index. All right, so we've got two more things to do. Let's add a button quickly. Let's rename. We're going to have this one called get lowest, right? And we can get close and say show. We'll just say what relates the lowest, right? What I will be doing is I will be adding a text box here. Because I like having the lowest displayed on the text box. Sorry about that. Right, so that's how we'll do that. And let's go. Let's first do status, right? So status bay, it's, oh yes, and we need to create that function called subtract me. Right, so what we're going to have is we're going to have a private function subtract b and double. Supposed to be double. Let's just check the question paper quickly. Just looking for this. Yes, it does. Define function can just accept two parameters, a double parameter called first, double parameter called second. The function is calculated first minus second, which means logically it returns a double. Ideally, you should be telling us whether you're passing by ref or by val, yeah, in your parameter list, but not really like important to this thing, but you should be doing it. So for all structures, you should be telling us. But right now I'm just in a bit of a rush, so what we're gonna do is we're not do that. All right, that's done. So now we're just gonna loop through everything. So set integer equals 1. municipalities. Next. Yes. What we're going to do is we're going to calculate we're going to calculate the subtracted thing first. So what we're going to do is we'll give them a value. So we're just going to call it value as double, and say value equals to subtract the. That's our question. Basically, you're passing by vowels since it's a function. Yes. Yeah, that's more than fine. You don't have to pass by ref into a function, but you just specify by vowel for correctness sake. Subtracting the first from the second, and if I remember, it was revenue lost. I'm coming now. 1 second. Revenue lost, comma, municipalities. And now we've got value. And let's just check the question. Oh, you said shop. Right, cool. Now we need to determine the status itself, right? So now that we've got value, we can do a case statement. So we can just select case. Select value. Here we'll have case less than equal to 0. In this case, we will have, let's just say, I forgot this thing. Let's just go look at it quickly. This is equals recovered if it's less than or equal to 0. It's recovering if it's between 1 and 5,000 or 500,000. And it's assistance needed if it's greater. All right, so here we'll have municipalities. Status equals to what this thing again? It is recovering and assistance. Okay. Covered. All right, let's do another case here. Case 1, 2, no, it's 1 to 500,000. Municipality. Covering case. I think it's default, that's the word. Else. We'll check if this case else works now, but it should work. Let's well, actually, let's not use stuff we don't know will work. Let's just make sure it works. Case is greater than 500,000. Right. That sets it. Then we just need to display it. Right. So let's keep with our display on grid. Dem integer the one qualities y. What we're doing here is we're doing place texts, right? But it's going to be texts by the first thing x then y. So x is the column and y is the thing. And I remember we want this to be 1 and then y. And that worked out nicely. And in here, what we'll do is we'll go municipalities y dot get status, right? And that's that status done. Okay. That took us a little bit longer than I was expecting. Let's just do the lowest calculation quickly. I don't like it here. Let's move it down. Remember to put in the question numbers so that just indicate which question goes where, so that you know which question goes where, basically. It's important. Here in get lowest, our job is to find the lowest syntax municipality, right? So that's one for loop. It's not two because we're not looking inside each municipality, right? Or are we? Let's go read the question paper to make sure. And just getting the lowest. In field E, calculate and store the index of the liquor store. So we are looking at each store. So it is going to be 2 for loops. It is going to be 2 for loops. All right, so let's do it. Lowest syntax store. That doesn't make English sense, but I'm sure you guys understand what I'm saying. Just try and make your comments make English sense, unlike me. That's a bad example. What are we doing here? We're doing two for loops. All right, so we're gonna them x comma y as integer. Set up our nested for loops. 1, 2. Municipalities. X. Y. 1, 2. Stores. Next, Y. Right, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna say set a min as double, and we'll set up an I. Okay, right. What we'll do here is at the beginning we'll say I equals 1. We'll say min equals to municipality in wrong line. Let's put it in here. Municipalities. Stores 1, right? And we're gonna put, what are we gonna do with this? We're going to say it is B. inputs on the next line also, just for sake of completion. Now, what's wrong with you? Stores one. What's wrong? All right, cool. So now all we do is we put a nice little if statement in here. Municipalities.x and that dot stores y dot syntax is less than, and what we're going to do is we're going to say I equals y min and variable here. Yes. At the end of this for loop here, we will have a minimum for that municipality, right? That's good. So for y is equal to 2 to num stores. Why do you say that? Why do you say 2 to num stores? It doesn't matter if you start at 1 or 2, to be honest. Oh yeah, actually, you could use 2 or you could use 1. It's not going to matter. You're just comparing them. My if statement uses only less than. It doesn't use less than or equal to. So it's not going to cause a problem with number 1 because it won't be true. So it won't do anything with 1. No problem. So you can do it from 1 or 2. It's up to you. The reason it's more preferable to use 2 is you're just looping 1 less time, which decreases the time that your program runs doing this function, which is quite a cool thing to do. It's good software engineering practices. So yeah, let's be smart about this. Let's be good software engineers. What did I say here? I said we now have this municipality min, right? So what we'll do here is we will, I don't know if we were supposed to display this. If we were supposed to display this, I'll just add another row to the table, to our grid. So let's quickly just store this. So we'll go municipalities worst index. Is this correct? Let's just make sure. Worst index is equal to 9. Right. Let's just read the question paper again. Make sure we're doing this question correctly. I don't want to be misleading you guys. So worst index, right? It's the worst performing liquor store. For each municipality, calculate and store in field E the index of the liquor store that had the lowest syntax collected. Right? Syntax collected we stored already. Yeah, so that's fine. Use this index to display the name of the liquor store each municipality that had the lowest index. Okay, so we shouldn't have used the text box. That's what so we do need to add a field to say the lowest performing. All right, let's go add that quickly. Where's the grid? See, everybody makes mistakes if you're rushing. So it's okay to make a mistake as long as you read and make sure. So this is where design would have saved me. That's why doing a design before you code is more important than a lot of things, right? I wouldn't have had to do this whole fix my mistake had I just done it correctly the first time. Let's put so it's going to be after dead status. Yeah, we'll do it after dead And we will call it worst store. Let's get it in store plus 3. Right, that's done. Then number of stores plus 3. Right, cool. Let's just copy that actually. I think we're gonna need it now. Municipality X store Y syntax. If line 191, if min is greater than municipality X dot store Y dot syntax. Let's make sure this line 191. If municipality stores X, Y1 syntax less than the minimum. Right? The reason, okay, so what you're saying is that our minimum needs to be greater than the municipality X store Y dot syntax. And what I'm saying is that if municipality X store Y syntax is less than min, do you understand that they're logically equivalent? Because, yes, please talk.
Okay, so yeah, I understand you, sir. I was just puzzled by the way you your syntax, because you normally start with the mean and then followed by the mean municipalities X dot stores dot syntax. But I see that this is correct. I was just saying that the way you wrote it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was okay.
Either way you do it, it's perfectly fine as long as you're making sure that your min is now the bigger value, right? That's the thing. So that's as long as you make sure that the min is now the bigger value and that's why you're changing the min, then you're fine. You're doing it correctly.
Okay, sir.
Sharp. All right, so now to display, as usual, let's do our little zip line display on grid. And before I forget, let's put that down. And we'll need a for loop, right? One as integer, right? So for each municipality, what we're going to do is we're going to display on the grid. So what we do here is we take this here, and by 0 we will put x1. Right, so this one will go down the list and display all of the worst stores. Hopefully that is the whole practical. Let's just reread the question paper to make sure we have done everything that we need to do, and then we can do a quick test run and make sure that everything works. All right, so oh yes, this whole 7.1 thing is a million. Mr. Cottrell did say that it's going to be done in the tutorial, so I shouldn't focus on that. If you have a question about it, like, we can deal with it, but it's not really a big deal. It's basically just times by million. Right? So you just take 7.1 and multiply it by a million. It's really like pretty simple. So when you read it off the input box, just multiply it by a million and store it if you feel like that's a good way of doing it. Quickest way, design, implementation of interface, we did. Option statements, we've got. Effective use of subroutines, we do have. Please break up things as you feel necessary. Remember, one function or one subroutine per purpose, or one purpose per subroutine. Right, we've got our record structures. That's done. We do input the number of municipalities. We set up the grid, set up the dynamic array, set up the grid, label the grid in control headings. We've input data for each province or each municipality as we've done it now. We calculated the total profit. We calculated the syntax. We displayed the syntax. We calculated the total syntax collected and we displayed it. and we found the index of the worst one, and we displayed the name. Did we display the name? Let's just make sure. I don't think we did. Worst store municipalities X is equal to I. That's the thing that we didn't do. So what we have to do here is we change it to the name, right? We need to put I in there. I got the name. That's all you do to get the name. Oh, but this is worst index. We'll just have to do it here. My bad. I forgot to change the string. X. Here we go. So you get the name. Yes, you may speak.
Okay, so I've noticed that you like your syntax, the format in which you write your in your place text or your display, you starting with a string and then followed by a column and a row. So is that still fine? Because I noticed that the order is very important. That you start with the row, the column, and then the string.
As long as you match your place texts, so let's say in your place text you start with the row, then you do string, then you the row, the text, and then the column, right? As long as you remember it and you put the right row into row and you put the right column into column, you don't mix it around in your code, it's fine. If you're used to doing it a certain way, just keep doing it like that and it should be fine.
Okay, so because I see your style is very different from ours, but it's covered. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
learning a lot.
Yeah, so with code, the best thing to do is to experiment and find out what you feel comfortable with. Find your style of coding and what you want to do. Just remember, it doesn't matter. Certain things don't matter. Like the order of parameters don't matter. As long as you know which parameter goes where and what it does, that's fine. And you code it to be correct. Like for example, in my one, if I made a mistake with the rows and then the columns, it's going to throw an error later on, or it won't display the correct thing. And that's something I'll have to look out for
Okay,
when I'm testing. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. No problem. All right, let's just continue checking what we were doing. So we've done the lowest syntax collected. We've displayed the name of the store. We did the subtract ID function. We did the code. We found out the status from 1 to 500,000, greater than 500,000, and we calculated the debt and we displayed the debt status. We have done the whole practical. Let's just do a demo of it working, and then we can be happy with ourselves. Let's start it up. Right, let's start with capture data. How many days are we monitoring for? Let's go 1, 2 stores, 3 municipalities. What is the name of municipality 1? We will call it Kuleni. Let's call it Belfast. Look, you see, this is what I was telling you about. In the event that you did something wrong. Oh, I tried to convert string to double. I wonder why I did that. Revenue. Oh, okay. Let's try that again. That was probably a user error. Oh yeah, you guys can't see this most likely. Let's just show you guys. Let's show you guys the screen. Let's try and show you guys that. Share application window. Share. Hopefully you guys can see this. Please raise your hand if you can see my form. Okay, cool. So how many days are we monitoring for? 1. How many stores per municipality? 2. How many municipalities are we recording? 3. Okay, what is the name of municipality 1? What is the revenue for the amount that this was bought for? Since we didn't do the million conversion, I'm just gonna go 136. So that is going to be 1.5 million, right? In the Ekurhuleni municipality, what is the name of store 1? We'll call it Tops. In the Ekurhuleni municipality for store Tops, did you see I made a mistake with my spaces here? That's why it's important to test. So then you find out that there's a mistake here, so you can just change it. What is the profit for day 1? Now, there's only one day, so I'm just gonna put 100. Let's do. We said 3 municipalities. Each one needs a debt status, right? Let's try and get one with 0, right? So where we have 1, 2, 3. This should give us 0, right? In Ekurhuleni municipality, what is the name of store 2? Oh Jesus, I think I've done something wrong here. I forgot that we added 2 stores. What is the name of store 2? Let's call it Liquor Boys. Store Liquor Boys. What is the profit for day 1? Let's call it 0. What is the name of municipality 2? What is the amount of revenue that was lost for municipality 2? If I remember right, we were looking for above 500,000 rand for it, between 500,000 and 500,000 rand for it to say assistance needed. I'm not assistance recovering, right? So we're going to aim for 400. We're going to aim for 550,000, right? And what's going to happen is we're going to move on the first store is going to 25,000, the second store is going to 25,000. So in the Belfast municipality, what is the name of this store 1? What I don't know any stores in Belfast. We'll just call it store 1. Store 1. What is the profit for day 1? 25,000. Store 2. 25,000. Right. Name of municipality 3. We'll call this Johannesburg. I don't know what the municipality for Johannesburg is. Amount of revenue that was lost for municipality 3. For this one, it needs to be above 500,000, right? So the difference between them needs to be above 500,000. It's going to be revenue lost plus the total gain, right? Minus the total that we've gained. So we're going to make this 750,000, right? And what is the name of store 1? We'll just call it ST1. For ST1, what is the profit for day 1? We can say 10,000. What is the name of store? 2ST2 10,000. Right? Plate syntax. Ooh, look, another error. Index was outside of bounds. Now let's figure out why this happened, right? So it's municipalities X total syntax. So number of municipalities, right? Ooh, what have we done wrong here? What is number? Number of municipalities is 3. X is 4. Why is X 4? Oh, it's supposed to be X1. Did you see a silly error, right? That was a silly I'm sorry about that. I didn't even realize it kicked me out. Up till where did you guys see the practical? Can somebody just quickly tell me? What did you guys see me do last? If you guys can hear me, please raise your hand. Oh, testing the program. Did you guys see the crash at the end? Yes, no, maybe. I'll tell you what happened just in case. Basically it crashed because I forgot to make it X1 in one of the loops again, where I used X, which was a mistake. Yeah, so you just correct that by making it X1 again, and then the problem we encountered was that the grid was displaying incorrectly. So I think it's gonna be all for today. I'll fix the grid error and I'll get Mr. Cottrell to upload the code. If he, I don't think he will though, but I'll try and get him to upload it. But that's a good problem for you guys to solve. Share the screen, okay? Application window. All right, can you see this? Hopefully. Yeah, so that X1 there in municipalities, that's what the problem was. And then the grid problem is probably just me swapping around my X and Y at some stage there. So if you guys can solve that one, I mean, you guys have been working with grids for quite a while now. So go and experiment and try and solve that one there. And when you do, you'll have a better understanding of grids. But for now, as you can see, the debt status works. The basically the whole practical works. It's just it's not displaying properly. So you guys have the idea of how to do the practical itself. You just have to get it to display, and that's a good thing to show your understanding of display. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I look forward to next week's. Do you have any questions just before I go? Any questions remaining?
Oh,
Yes.
can I talk, sir? Oh yeah. So thing is for labeling the municipalities because we're not used to labeling the municipalities. Prof. Long like told us that it is fine that you name your municipality 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then that in informatics 1B, it's when that will be advanced and rename like actually like saying Okorule, Johannesburg, and so forth. So my question is for this practical, I didn't do like change the labeling of it, but it says municipality 1, municipality 2, liquor store 1, liquor store 2, and it displays everything correctly, so it's fine. The marks
That's
won't be
fine.
deducted.
No, marks won't be deducted. I just like to make programs easier to read for the user so that they don't have to remember a lot of things.
Oh, okay,
You know?
thank you so much, and the lesson is great. Thank you, much appreciated.
No problem. If you guys have any more questions or anything like that, please tell Mr. Cottrell so that next week I can address them. Just put your hand up in the chats or something and tell him.
Okay, sir. So is it fine if I can log out now? Go off now?
Yes. Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
The class is over. Thank you so much for staying.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your time, sir. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sharp.